So I want to measure my sleep. I want to track those things. But health for me is every day I must move. It doesn't matter if it's as simple as, 50 push-ups, 50 squats, and 50 sit-ups. I have to do something. I have to get a good night's sleep. I track it. Not every night's good. Sometimes things happen. Starting the day, very routine.
Welcome to A Founder's Life, and I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Thankz, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thankz.com, that's THANKZ.com, with the subject line A Founder's Life, and you'll get $1,000 off your first month. Now, I'm excited today to be joined by Dusty Holcomb. Dusty, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Leo, it's delightful to be here today. I am a recovering leader. Maybe I should say it because I'm always learning. Leadership requires learning. I'm a person who's just been fascinated with how to lead myself. I've had the privilege and honor of serving people and organizations as president, CEO, but most impactfully and most importantly, trying to create an impact for others and empower the success of others. And that's my personal mission statement. And it's a privilege to be able to share a little bit with you.
Great. Well, thank you. What I'd like to start off with is, why don't you talk to a little bit about your personal journey that brought you to where you are today, and then dive into a little more about how you're really able to help in your business?
Yeah, I think the seeds of my personal journey were planted when I started being homeschooled when I was in 5th grade. We lived in a very rural area, and that was the best option. And my learning style became one of reading. And so I became fascinated with how to read, what to read. History specifically was just a great motivator. And that led me to wanting to learn about psychology, learning about how people think, about how people impact others. And I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had no idea. In fact, I went to business school because I was thinking, I can always get a job. But I always had this inner voice, this whisper that says, you're supposed to help people. And when I got into B school, I found organizational behavior and organizational psychology, and I loved that. And then I had a great mentor who taught me what leadership really was. And so then I had the privilege of, for 28 years, serving in corporate roles where I was, served in every role: operations, chief marketing officer, CEO, president, you name it. But always principally around serving others. Like my mission statement then, and as it is now, is to enable and empower the success of others. And then that was a seed planted with me from leadership of our job. And my first mentor was a retired colonel, and he taught me, your job is to ensure that your people are successful in completing the mission. You work for them. And when you do that and they will achieve the mission and the team will win. And so never lose sight of that. And that's one of those things that I've carried forward through my entire career as I self-taught myself all the way through high school. And then, had those journeys where people say, hey, you're not smart enough because you didn't go to this school, or you didn't go to a regular high school. You learn to overcome those things and take them as a little bit of motivation. And and so my journey to becoming an entrepreneur was, I always knew I would be. I always knew I wanted to be. I just didn't know how. And so I had to find out that little Venn diagram, of what I'm best in the world at, what fills my cup and gives me passion, and then what can create economic viability. And so once I figured that out, that's what led me to start my firm about 1.5 years ago.
Excellent. And what does family look like for you?
Yeah, I have a wife, Tara. I have 3 amazing kids, a almost 17-year-old daughter who's 17 going on about 46. She's way too wise for her age. 14-year-old son and an 8-year-old son. So, we've got elementary school, middle school, and high school all at the same time. And, our ideal state is doing something in the outdoors, something in a place of nature, getting out, having fun, playing card games, playing board games. Our best memories from this past summer will be playing card games late in the night and talking smack to each other and just having fun being together.
It is fun. Some of my favorite times with the kids, and my kids are a little bit older. They're 20 and 23 tomorrow. And some of my favorite times are in what I call the small moments. It's when there is no agenda. Late at night, or for my son, it's in the gym together. My daughter might be going for a walk, but there's no agenda. There's nothing to talk about, which is, for me, my favorite times.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I love what you just said, like in the gym with your son. Just a few weeks ago, my son and he's playing football. And so he asked if I could work out with him, and because he wanted to learn. And so we get in the gym together for an hour and a half. And, it was awesome for me. I'm just teaching. I'm showing him, things, and he's getting his tail kicked and loving it. We go through the whole day, and 2 hours working in the yard. I've taught him how to, grill and smoke on the grill. And he comes to the end of the day, and as he's heading up to bed, I give him a hug, and he goes, "This is my 14-year-old. Dad, today was awesome. What a great day." And in my mind, I'm going, you got your butt kicked in the gym. You did yard work around the house. You had to cook. And it was not about, we had an agenda. We didn't. It was all about being present. And, one of my favorite pastors, says that kids spell love, Time. And it was a good reminder for me. And, I struggle with that sometimes, if I'm being completely honest.
I love that. And I have to tell you, the fun thing is my 20-year-old son, who was 14 when we started weightlifting every day together, or boxing, I was certainly teaching him. I was lifting much heavier. At 20 now, not only is he lifting much heavier weights than I am, he's also telling me all the things that I'm doing wrong, where my form is wrong. And I love that. I'm completely love the fact that he's got much more knowledge than I have. Great. And that's so much easier now than that would have been for us as kids to get that knowledge.
It's really cool when they make that divide, or that they cross over that chasm inflection point of absorbing information to sharing. And they, even at my 8-year-old wants to do that, right? Teach me all about what he's learned in Minecraft, which I know nothing about. But man, when they do start kicking your tail, or they do start telling you you're doing things wrong. And I'm like you, I love it, because I don't need to be right. I have zero interest in being right. I have every interest in doing what is right and learning how to be better. And when your kids start teaching, it is like my kids teach me every day. I have to remind myself to make sure I'm listening.
Being present.
It's hard.
Yes. And what do you like to do for health? Whether that's, by the way, mental, physical, sleep, however that looks for you.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time thinking about how to optimize. I got hooked on Peter Attia's longevity work about, 7 or 8 years ago. And, really opened my mind to, there are domains you really have to pay attention to. You mentioned sleep. Like I was the guy who reveled in the fact that, I could get by on 5 hours of sleep a night, not realizing that, that's not a badge of honor. That's actually a sign of weakness, a lack of prioritization, a whole bunch of other things. So for me, it's measuring, because I'm a bit of a nerd. So I want to measure my sleep. I want to track those things. But health for me is every day I must move. It doesn't matter if it's as simple as, 50 push-ups, 50 squats, and 50 sit-ups. I have to do something. I have to get a good night's sleep. I track it. Not every night's good. Sometimes things happen. Starting the day, very routine driven, cold water, meditation, devotional, journaling, before I allow myself to touch the phone, the technology, or anything else. Get some movement in, and try to optimize and eat healthy, etc. I went through a phase of life where I was doing a bunch of Ironman racing and, all the long distance stuff, which I loved. Wish is the wrong word. I'm wrestling with how I'm going to get back to that. But also, like anything else, it can become an obsession too, and it can take over your life. And so I want to find that I'm always striving for balance. I don't think there's any such thing as work-life balance, or like this perfect ratio one must achieve. I think we, as people who lead ourselves effectively, have to understand we are always balancing. We're always navigating the tensions that are existing. And so for me, health is trying to become better every day at navigating that tension. So it's going to be take care of my body, take care of my mind, take care of the space I'm in, by reading, et cetera. And yeah, it's always tuning and always tweaking it.
What do you like to do for fun?
For fun is get out with the kids on the water, go boating, stuff like that. Get out in the outdoors, go hiking, go hunting, go fishing, anything that's outdoors and active. And sometimes, when I've done those things, it's just sitting down on the porch with a good book, like sitting outside and, just reading something that doesn't have anything to do with, business or anything else. And for me, it's going to be history. It's going to be some type of history or some type of thing like that, because that's not work. That's just absolute joy. How about you? What is your, I'm curious, Leo, what is it that you do for fun that fills your cup?
That's an interesting one. I mean, I enjoy life generally. I'm in a good place. Don't get me wrong. I work hard. Working out is fun. I mean, going for a long run or going for a walk with my daughter or, whatever the form that takes, I actually get pleasure out of that. And that took a long time. Don't get me wrong. I used to hate it. It takes time for those positive endorphins to kick in and then it becomes addictive. So, working out, spending time with loved ones is for me, fun in whatever form that takes. Quite often the small moments being going for a walk or sitting on the balcony and having a nice meal or whatever it is. So, for me, fun takes a lot of different shapes. I love travel. I'm planning where I'm going to go for October, November. I'll be somewhere in the world. I'm not quite sure where on my digital nomad journey. So yeah, I mean, lots of different things take place in that area that we'll call fun for me.
I love that. Yeah, I think, you hit a great reminder for everyone, and me included, is that just being present, being in that space, actively in that space, not thinking about where you should be or where you could be, but reveling in where you are. And I think maybe that's one of the secrets to just having fun, is being appreciative of exactly where you are right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky in the fact that I am very much a half full guy. I know plenty of people who are glass half empty people. It's just not my nature. However negative things are, and as an entrepreneur, we all have successes and we have failures. It's the nature of an entrepreneur. Even through the failures, I look at the positives. I look at tomorrow. And generally in life, I'm not a big one at over-analyzing what happened last week, last month, last year. In business, there's reasons to do aspects, but in life, I don't believe in that. I'm much more, what do I want to be? What do I want to achieve? Let's look at the present. Let's make a difference for tomorrow. It's like, I don't need apologies, for example. There's something that just don't feed me. I don't need them. I'd much prefer that we change whatever that pattern is and be different today, be different tomorrow.
Yeah, we have a very similar mindset and approach. I only want to spend enough time looking at the past to understand and learn so that we can get to, improve on where we were going and how we get there. Some people say that glass half full, or that eternal optimism, is a negative or is isn't realistic. And I argue that it is that mindset that allows you to shift forward at a much more sustainable, durable, and enjoyable rate. One of my favorite books, I just finished my annual reread of it, is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And it's that, that ability to choose, no matter what's going on in the world around you, and really just focus on your response and where you want to go. It's that forward view is just so powerful. And I had to learn the hard way. You can't force that on other people. They have to get there themselves if they're going to. It's their choice, not mine. And I'm also not going to be a victim of their choices and allow those things to influence me. It's like the Bruce Lee quote, it's going to be like water, my friend. Like somebody else's mindset is going to be water around me and just flow. I'm not going to let it affect me.
Yeah. If it lets you affect you, it's you, not them.
Yep, exactly.
People are welcome to be who they want to be. You can choose whether you spend time with them, but people are welcome to be who they want to be. And I do have a no arseholes rule, as in that we all have to do a little bit of that, but generally just not interested in spending time, whether it be socially or in business. I don't want customers who are arseholes. It doesn't mean I love all my customers, but generally I just don't need to work with people I don't like at all.
Couldn't agree with you more. Life is too short, right? And the return on invested time. And I do think a lot about that, like because I agree, no asshole rule. Doesn't mean I like everybody, but man, life's too short, and there are people that are enjoyable and pleasurable to work with, and you will create more value for them, and they will receive more value, and you will receive more in return. So I'm full agreement. Doesn't have to like everybody. And frankly, sometimes I'm not that likable, but I'm always going to show it with an intent to make someone else's day better.
It's funny. We had a customer who, I'm happy to say is an ex-customer, who was not a nice person and actually ended up screwing us out of quite a lot of money. But it's a guy in his 60s. And I remember talking to my son about him sort of probably 6 months ago. And my son's like, how is someone in their 60s still an arsehole? I mean, honestly, we were discussing this and he's like, I get that someone in their 20s can be. At some point, don't you grow out of this? Like, how are you still in business? How are you?
Great question. It really is. I don't know. I think some people, whether it's their background, their makeup, their mindsets, the teachings, whatever it is, I'm not going to try to root cause analysis others. They don't get to the place where they understand that it's not about you. And the person who is an asshole principally doesn't understand that statement.
Yeah. And I think they also don't believe in doing the right thing, which
100%.
is, again, down to what you said, which is they look after number one purely. But in the end, I'm a big believer in doing the right thing. That doesn't mean I 100% do the right thing all the time. But as a general rule, whatever circumstance it is, as long as it isn't a massive issue for me, I'll do the right thing if it costs me a little bit more. It's just what goes around comes around. I just think in life, generally be a nice person. Be fair.
I agree with you. And I will do the right thing even if someone else isn't, right? And I'm not going to own the fact that, they took advantage of me or they screwed me or whatever that is. That's them. Now I'm going to not let it happen again. I'm going to choose to disassociate, right? But I'm not going to own that resentment. Someone once told me, so holding on to anger and resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. And I'm just not going to hold on to it. I'm not going to choose to be around it either. That's their problem. It impacted me, but I'm now going to make a better choice.
I do love that one though. I'll have to remember that quote because that's a good one.
Yeah, it's been helpful for me.
Moving on to my next question, which is around balance. Now, I should probably define what I mean by balance, because to me, balance is not perpetually in balance, because unless you're a Buddhist monk, you're probably not perpetually in balance. For me, balance is that overall balance. And that means that sometimes you're doing more one thing, sometimes more of the other. But what is that center line? What does that overall balance look like for you?
Yeah, I would say, and I appreciate you kind of unpacked how you think about it. I think of balance as this mindset of identifying what's most important and then being fully there. And then there's always tension, right? There's balance is a tension. Like there's wind, there's movement. There's if you're on, I think of this tightrope metaphor. And so there's all these variables that are going on that cause you to have to make dynamic shifts and focus on what's most important in the moment. The tightrope walker, if he doesn't focus on the line, the tightrope, he's going to fall. And so do I do it perfectly? Absolutely not. Do I mess up? Yes. And so I then try to install little things that pull me away from my attention, such as, and for example, if I'm going out on the boat with the kids, I just turn the phone off, right? So, we can download the music and play it through the speakers, but the phone doesn't have to be on. It can be put away in the caddy so it's not available. And being very intentional. For me, it's a lot about being intentional and struggling with it, right? One of the challenges that I wrestle with, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this, I really struggle with because I love what I do. And because it is both filling my cup and is providing economic value to myself and others, I will just go and forget that there are other things that are more important even than what I'm working on. And I, every once in a while, I'm very blessed that my bride will remind me that, hey, just because you're enjoying this and it's not work doesn't mean that it is the only thing that's important in your life. And I'll admit that I need compass point checks to make sure that I'm doing the right things. So for me, balance is about trying to be focused on the most important thing in that moment and not letting something else pull me away from it.
That's a great one. Really about being present in that moment.
Yeah. And it's hard, but it's like meditation. When you find yourself thinking, that's the point of meditation. You just get to start again. And, I would say that that's probably been one of the most formative practices that I've developed about 10 years ago, was a daily meditation habit. And I didn't get it at first. I did it because somebody recommended it. But what I realized is that it was actually the installation of a circuit breaker. And it was the ability to pause in the moment and go, okay, I need to begin again. I need to not say this. So the little things like that just allow you to have a circuit breaker.
Yeah. I like the way that Headspace talks about it. And, it's, yes, your mind will get disturbed and you'll go off on something else. But what it's about is not criticizing that, not trying to say, oh, I shouldn't be thinking about that. It's recognize it, let it go. It's like the cloud in the sky. It's, oh yeah, I see you. Okay, now you can go. And yeah, it takes learning that skill. I've also been meditating about 10 years. And what has been a pivotal moment for you in your life?
There's a lot. I would say one of the most formative pivotal moments is when I met with a college guidance counselor, as I was homeschooled and in the States, had a general equivalency diploma. And, that meant that I self-taught everything I knew. Like we didn't have formalized curriculum. I read. So I was not the kid who could read a math textbook and just absorb it and do it. So when I came to standardized testing, math was not something that I scored well in. And so I had a college guidance counselor who looked at transcripts. I had the GED, and he goes, Dusty, not everybody is cut out for, college. You should consider trade school or perhaps being a tradesman. And I remember that moment walking out of there going, this person doesn't know me. They have no idea of the intellectual power or rigor that I have. And it was a huge motivator because it made me just realize I need to go expand my horizons of learning and really absorb doing different things. And it honestly gave me a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. Like, okay, I'm going to prove. So when I went back 4 years later, I met back and found him, took him my graduation diploma, summa cum laude, and said, thank you. Thank you for this motivation. And so that's been one of the pivotal moments, inflection points, having great mentors. I was 22 years old, 21 years old, the first time I was leading teams. And at 23 years old, I was hired to move a call center, hire 300 people, and build a culture in a remote town. I had no business doing that. I didn't have the chops intellectually or experientially, but I had people who believed in me, and I had great mentors who taught me that as long as I remembered it wasn't about me, focus on the mission, that we can get the right team in place. So I've had a wonderful journey and lots of things that have framed me, and they've all become additive in helping me continue to grow and learn.
Nice. And what's one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
The one piece of advice I would give to an aspiring entrepreneur is to relentlessly distill, and focus on what's most important for the next cycle of your business or of your growth. I had to learn that lesson the hard way. Becoming an entrepreneur, I'd been an intrapreneur in corporate world. So I was a guy on the corporate side who would take a new business venture and scale it. That's very different than being an entrepreneur where you're doing all of it, or it's your baby. And as I converted from corporate to being an entrepreneur, I had been a scale guy my entire career, the guy who took businesses and grew them. And I had to learn how to become a growth leader. And as an entrepreneur, like focusing not on the ability to scale this thing to, 10,000 users or 100,000 users or anything else. Like, let's get to the user of 1 and then 2 and then 3. So relentless distillation and focus is the advice that I would give an entrepreneur. It's the advice I would give myself in going back to any stage of my career. Is like, determine the most important thing, do that thing, allow others to bring ideas, but be good at saying no.
Be good at saying no. That's a good one. And
it's
how can people find you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, of course, Dusty Holcomb, or they can visit arcusgroup.com, ARCQUS group.com. That's our leadership consulting firm. Or they can hear me on my podcast, Leadership Unlocked. And it's such a joy and a privilege to talk to leaders and learn from them. And so any of those ways, simply email me, dusty@arcusgroup.com. Like I love great conversations.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Leo. It's been a delight. You've taken me down a path or two I haven't thought about in a while. I appreciate that journey.
Excellent. That's the aim. And thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and please leave a review.